All right. Peace and greetings, YouTubers. So, welcome to another edition of In the News. Let's just jump right into it. Now, I have to shout out Philly and definitely send my condolences to the family, friends, fans, and supporters of rapper Tech-9. It's always sad when people pass on, you know what I mean? Especially if you just talk to them on a Monday and they're no longer there on a Tuesday, because you never realize, we don't have an instinct to know when somebody's going to pass on unless they're already sick or something like that. But you never recognize that conversation you just had with a friend or somebody may be the last one. You never know. And that's one of the aspects that come with life. You see many people come and go. And as you get older, it's harder to watch so many go, because these end up being the friends and the family and the parents and people that you may be a fan of. But I think the good thing when it comes to Tech-9 is that I think he knew that he was appreciated even in his last moments. He knows that he already made his significant impact in hip-hop, and he knows that there were people who aspired to be him. There were people who wanted to challenge him and were pissed that they may not have gotten in that last round. There were people who looked at him as somebody to model themselves after within hip-hop. And I think for him, I can't speak for him, I don't know him personally, but I think that's always the best way to go out. When you know that you've made an impact, and you know that you've connected with somebody, and that your life had a purpose. Your purpose in life, you lived it, and it affected many and impacted many in a positive way. And so, condolences to his, everybody associated. It's always sad to see people go. And the good thing is his legacy is everywhere. Thank God for YouTube and the internet. I mean, you can go on YouTube right now. He has so many, there's so much footage and stuff on there. So, if you really weren't too familiar, just know that when it came to battle rap, there weren't too many people seeing him. He just pretty much was the stay all be all. It was a rap. And listen, if he ever dropped the line with the bring out the body bag, that meant that you messed up. You were supposed to battle, you didn't pull your weight, and now he's going to end you. There's no coming back from this, so you need to go home and recalibrate how you're going to do everything. He definitely represented an aspect of hip-hop that I think sometimes is underappreciated, and that's battle rap. Like I said, hip-hop has so many layers, because one, you have the industry and you have the art form. And so a lot of times, the accolades of the industry overshadow the art form sometimes. But when it comes to something like battle rap, that's a skill that not everybody's blessed with. Like me, I wouldn't be able to do it. You got to be quick on your feet with battle rap. And not only quick on your feet, but also got to be able to throw out the punches and really come out with memorable lines that people never forget. And you just got to be ready at all times. That it's like your job is never done. And I think he represents that. I said this before in a few episodes back where I was talking about on Netflix the documentary The Hip Hop Evolution, the Evolution of Hip Hop, and I referenced the first 2 episodes of the first season where they talk about those early origins of hip hop and talking about just all the different battle crews. And those moments are such cultural establishments in hip hop and just pop culture. It's like, man, sometimes I'll watch stuff like that and be like, dang, I wish I was around to experience that, or I wish I was around to just be in the room. With hip hop, there's so many milestones and elements that people have been fortunate enough to experience that is something that they take with them forever. So I think another example would be even when Biggie passed on, and after the funeral, and you had the parade through his neighborhood, and you had all the people out on the sidewalk, and it was a party and everything like that. For the people who were there that day, it's like, I was there that day in '97. I was there for that moment. That's stuff that follows people forever, and that's something you can't get from a commercialized industry standpoint, which is why I'm always talking my trash about gentrification as well. As they continue to chip away cultural establishments and cultural meeting places to build, I don't know, a yoga gym and a Starbucks, it erases that. So I'm glad that somebody like Tech-9, the internet is at least here, and that his stuff is documented, his stuff is everywhere. Because yes, he was based in Philly, but his stuff traveled. You got kids in Idaho who know who he is. You got kids in Japan watching his stuff and studying his every craft, trying to better their own craft. So you know what? Condolences, rest in peace. And again, I think that impact he put out there, it's solidified. You can't take that away from him. And so, some of your favorite rappers cite him as one of their favorite battle rappers. So, condolences. Also, moving on, today would have been Aretha Franklin's birthday. And again, it just goes back to what I said about, it's just always sad to see so many come and go. But, there's a few celebrity deaths that I'm just like, dang. And the recent ones that really just like, dang. Aretha, Prince, Whitney, and Natalie. Those have been the 4 that I get mad thinking about it sometimes. And because they're like, dang, they were so good at everything. And if you had my last album, Prince, his sound was all through it. And he's even all throughout this one that I'm about to release. But you know, like, just it was so great. And Natalie, listen, y'all, if you're really into some singing, you gotta check out that live album she had. And of course, we all know Whitney was Whitney, but with Aretha, you know, because she just recently passed not too long ago, it's like, man, that's crazy. But again, I always say I was glad I was born when I was born. Like, fortunately, I've been able to see a lot of these people live. Like, I got to see Aretha live twice, fortunately. And it's just crazy that, you know, these people go. And sometimes it feels like the voids that they leave never get filled. And maybe it's because they're not supposed to be filled, and newer acts who come out are supposed to create their own lane that, you know, creates a new element and a new space in creativity. But, you know, it's just always sad that people go on. But the good thing is that all of these people left impacts, and they've impacted so many lives. And, you know, they became the standard and the blueprints for so many. Also, you know, in April, they're going to be releasing the Amazing Grace concert from 1972. That's the Amazing Grace album that Aretha recorded. If I had a favorite track from that album, I'd said this before when I did my, I guess my memorial video of Aretha. My favorite track from that album was Holy Holy. It was a Marvin Gaye song that came out in 71, and then she redid it and twisted it around, and I mean, it's such a great arrangement. I really, really like that it has like this extremely mellow vibe, and those sopranos, man, they weren't playing with them notes. That, like, I was like, y'all are on it. Like, it's a good listen. It's a really good listen. I like Marvin's as well, but something Aretha did with hers, just, you be like, man, that's crazy. So, you know, definitely, man, time flies. You know, it's crazy as you start watching people that you grew up on start passing away. Because somebody like Aretha Franklin was a legend to the legends. You know what I mean? Crazy. And if I had a favorite, an additional favorite album, you know, like I said, one of my other favorite songs of hers was Skylark. That came out before Aretha became Aretha. This is when she was still doing a lot of the jazz, the more jazzy sounding albums. This was when she was with her first record deal, and she came out with a bunch of albums, and they all did a little something here and there. This is all before Respect and Never Loved the Man the Way I Love You, like all of those kind of songs. This before that. Skylark, I think, just has a really great production value. It's just, it's subtle, it's simple, but the richness and the tone of her voice is just definitely just, it's exhibited. It's really good. And then as far as albums, one of my favorite albums of hers was So Damn Happy. That one came out in like 2003. I always thought it was a really nice album. It has like Mary J. Blige on it. It was kind of current, but it was still Aretha. It was dope. Anyway, moving on. I definitely wanted to shout out, if you're in Baltimore, definitely check out this movie theater. It's the first, well, not the first. I'm sure there was one before, but right now it is the only Black-owned movie theater in Baltimore, and it is called Next Act Cinema. And so it recently opened in March. And I mean, I'm gonna make sure the pictures are posted while I'm talking about it. Definitely go out and support this business. We're always talking about ownership, and we're always talking about Black business and supporting it and giving people a ledge to stand on, not to jump off, but to stand on, and you know, pretty much creating that opportunity, because of course money creates money and everything like that. So this is a great opportunity for those of you in DMV, be more area. Listen, even if you're in DC, you want to take a road trip on the weekend just to go support, I say go and support them. You know, it's a Black-owned movie theater. And I mean, they got food, drink service, all of that. They got the recliners, and it's, you know, support. So definitely shout out to them. If you're in Baltimore, if you're in PG County, Maryland, DC, hey, even if you're in Northern Virginia, if you're in Alexandria, Virginia, you want to make that trek for about maybe 50 minutes, go ahead and do it. The movie should be worth it, hopefully. So definitely check them out. And did we see the story about the Viking Sky cruise ship over in Europe that got caught in that really, really rough water? I mean, I don't know if it was a storm or what. All I know is they had 25-foot waves crashing into the ship, and that whole ship was just going and tossing. And I'm going to play the video at the same time, but I mean, that ship was just, I don't know. The people went on the boat. They thought they were going to go on a nice little cruise, and, you know, they could take pictures on the rail and get selfies and, get shrimp cocktail and listen to, you know, sounds of the rainforest and hear the live band. And next thing you know, it turned into the Splash Mountain cruise ship just getting tossed around. Like, that's some crazy stuff. See, that's why, like, I've never been one who was a big fan of cruises. Like, I'm kind of scary sometimes when it comes to water. I ain't gonna lie. Like, listen, if I go on a cruise, I need the cruise ship to be close enough to where I can still see the coastline the whole time. We ain't got to go way out in the ocean if we ain't got... What we going all the way out there for? We already on the water. The purpose of the cruise was to be on the water. So I want to still see some coastline. So just in case something goes down, I know I'm good. You know, I know that help will be on the way. We don't need to be way out in the middle of nowhere and it take 12 hours for somebody to come and help. All right. And it's crazy because one of my really good friends from college just got married Sunday, and the reception was on a boat. And so, of course, you know, everybody's on the boat, and we're like, okay, cool. And then, listen, of course, the wobble comes on, and everybody get to jump. And I'm like, hey, all of us can't jump at the same time. one at a time. I don't need this boat to start. Nope. And I mean, that boat, I was like, everybody go back this way. Everybody move to this side. I mean, we really can't control what's going to happen with the boat and the currents. But, I had an eye open. I was ready just in case. I didn't feel like swimming that day. But absolutely crazy. And, like, people had to get rescued by helicopter. And again, I'm not afraid of heights. But I am afraid of helicopter heights. Like, there's regular heights where you're just on the balcony or something, or maybe you're in a tall building. But then there's helicopter heights where they got you harnessed on a rope and they got to pull you up in a rope. And mind you, if the wind blows, you turn into Tarzan and crap. Like, that's some... Man, I know some of them people on that ship are getting paid. Because, listen, look at that clip. You see the clip where the furniture starts sliding? Like, listen, I'm not going to lie. If I was on that ship and that boat would have tilted the way, I would have threw myself on the ground and rolled into one of them tables on the floor. Especially the part where that roof tile falls. I would have made sure I got hit by, like, the corner of it real good on my arms. Oh. Listen, I would have been in court today. Get my check. Pay for some grad school. I want to get my doctorate at some point. I don't know when, but it would be really nice to get one soon. But anyway... absolutely crazy. Fortunately, nobody was killed or anything. There were some people who were injured, but man, like I said, if I go on a cruise ship, I want to be able to see the coastline the whole time. But don't get too close, because then that's when they start hitting rocks, because that's how that ship over in Italy started sinking, because the guy ended up, which is a story in itself, by the way. You remember that? I think it was the Concordia, where, the captain of the ship, he was so busy trying to impress the women who were on the coastline, and he was, yeah, baby, I'm driving the ship, look at me, what's up? And he got too close to the coastline and hit all them rocks. And the boat had a hole in it. Then the whole boat tilted over. And mind you, when they were asking, when they made the distress call and everything, and they're asking him, well, where are you? Where are you located? He wasn't even on the boat anymore. He done hopped onto one of the little safety boats and went to the coastline. And he's on his cell phone calling for help watching the boat sink. Now, that's some trifling stuff. You see, that's why I don't be going on the cruise lines. Let's do something on the ground. Just put a slip and slide out. We can and go to the pool. We can go to the pool, put the slip and slide out. We can still bring the shrimp cocktail. We can still play the Copacabana music. It's the same thing. But we're on the ground. We ain't got to worry about nothing wobbling unless we in California get hit with an earthquake or something. Anyway, moving right along. On to more serious things. Have we seen the story about the students from UGA? And the fraternity, I don't know what TKE stands for, but it's some fraternity they got, where some of the students have gotten in trouble because pretty much they decided to kind of just mock slavery and do the whole thing with the whooping the slave and everything. Like, I'm not going to spend too much time on it because I have bigger stories to cover, but I do want to bring some things into context. So let me play the clip really quick and then we'll talk.
Tell me to pick the cotton. Pick my cotton, bitch. I'm not black!
Wait, say what, Will?
My cotton, bitch.
Well, you're not using the right words.
Pick my... Wait, get a video of it. Pick my cotton, nigger.
So, here's the thing. Just like I always say in my videos, people get mad when I start calling things out as I see it. Especially that last video I just did with the Daniel Caesar thing. So many of his fans came in there so hot-headed about what I said. Mind you, we're talking structural conversation. This wasn't even about feelings. But the point that I'm making is, again, when people ask why black people are always giving other folks the side eye all the time, this is why. Because this is what people like to do, and it's not even behind closed doors anymore because they want to record everything and brag about it. But the part that gets me in the video is, wait, I think you're using the wrong word. And then the next part right after, yeah, record this part. I'm like, they don't even have shame anymore. Like, listen, if you're going to do the foolish racist thing and do the terrible things, don't do it on camera. Do it behind closed doors and keep it amongst yourself, you and your friends. But the problem is they record the stuff and they put it out and they think it's okay. And the reason why they think it's okay is because they live in environments where they're never challenged for those viewpoints and those actions because it's just always been something that was accepted. It goes to that whole boys will be boys culture that's only protective of certain groups of people. That's exactly what that's about. And so with that fraternity, apparently the fraternity's been suspended on campus. The students still attend the school, and most likely they're not going to be suspended or expelled from campus over that. Sorry, not to go there, Georgia. Listen, my family's from Savannah. My mama just moved to Atlanta, but again, there's roots and a history that's already established in places. And so, when you have buildings that are still named after Confederate leaders, what do you expect is going to happen at the university? No disrespect to the students who attend there, but that's the reality of what is. But, some people were extremely outraged. I wasn't outraged. I was just like, I just feel like that's what goes on a lot of campuses when people aren't around. when people are in spaces where they think it's just them and it's okay to do that. Okay, we saw the whole bit with Ralph Northam from Virginia and the blackface thing and him talking about, oh, he was trying to be Michael Jackson. I was like, now when was Michael ever that dark? When was Michael ever that dark? Y'all tried it. Y'all were not no big fans of Michael like that to that point where you wanted to go and be him. They just say anything. And then people go and buy it too. People will accept it. Well, he said that's what he was trying to do. You have to take his word for it. Stop judging. Like, all y'all crazy. So again, and the funniest bit is, those students, one to probably be the head of diversity at some major corporation. Another one, he'd probably be a legacy student at the university, and they'll sit on the diversity board when it comes to bringing in the quota for making sure they bring in enough people from different backgrounds into the university. Another one to be a politician, this, that, and the third. That's the way the cookie crumbles for some folks. So there's that. Anyway, while we're on the subject of Georgia, I do have to say, people in Atlanta, please be careful. I don't know if you've seen this, but there's some freaking lunatic that's just going up and randomly shooting up apartments. And the crazy thing about it is he did this 2 days in a row. Now, this is in Southwest Atlanta. And you have to ask. Well, you don't even have to ask because but you have to recognize the origins of where that's coming from. This individual clearly has targeted this neighborhood because he knows that probably the majority of the people who live there are black. Secondly, he recognizes that he is in a space where he can be protective enough to just do what he wants and somebody will back him. Because he doesn't even have a mask on. He's in regular plain clothes, running out here with, I don't know if that's an AK-47 or an AR-15, whatever it is, out there just spraying whole buildings. And not only that, but going out of his way and attacking vulnerable people. People who are minding their business at home, feeding the kids, cleaning the house, taking a nap, taking care of the elderly relative, taking care of the sick spouse, doing whatever they're doing. Maybe they're working on their college homework. Maybe they're working on some community project. Maybe somebody's in a room writing a script. Maybe somebody's at their house recording an album. Regular everyday people. He's not going after people who would technically be empowered. He's not, and I'm not saying he should go in and go shoot somebody else. But my point is, he's not even going after the people. He's not going after politicians or public figures or anybody who implements policy that may affect his life and do something that he may not approve of. He's going after everyday folks. And so it's going to show you that, again, the country we're living in and the climate that we're in, it's on some crazy stuff. The fact that he can go and do this 2 days in a row is a problem. Because if this was a different neighborhood, after he did that crap on the first day, there would be police all over all night, all day. There would be checkpoints. You wouldn't be able to get into the neighborhood without this, that, and third. If this was the right kind of neighborhood, if you get what I'm saying, the right kind of neighborhood, he wouldn't have been able to go to that neighborhood and do that 2 days in a row. It makes no sense that somehow he was able to do the same thing a second day in a row. That's crazy. And so please be just alert, because folks are crazy. You know what I mean? We're in this space where, have you ever seen a video or any of those videos where, I don't know, it's like the random white person is cussing out somebody Mexican in the grocery store or something, and another white person comes out and tells that white person to stop being terrible and you're racist and that's not what the country stands for and all this other crap. And then that person says that line, you're the reason we're going to lose the country, or we're losing the country because of you, or this is exactly what's wrong with America now. The dude with that gun spraying everybody, he is symbolic of those same people who have that viewpoint of thinking they're losing the country. Thinking that somehow, because other groups of people are moving up, even though they don't have the same amount of resources, but are somehow still outperforming them in a lot of aspects, they're losing the country. That element of fear, of recognizing that, okay, mediocrity is no longer going to be able to carry you. You're going to have to actually do some real work. And so now you're seeing people are living in fear. And that element of fear, like I've said before, race always leads to culture clash. Culture clash always leads to fear. Fear always leads to ignorance. Ignorance always leads to violence, unfortunately. And that's what you're starting to see now. You're starting to see people become violent. And you're starting to see people go out and target any and everybody. And of course, a lot of these different people, they got whole websites dedicated to this kind of stuff where they meet, and you got people who think there's going to be a race war. And they're gearing up and getting ready. And mind you, everybody else, folks are living their lives. Folks are trying to be the best person they can be and go and live in their passion. Meanwhile, you got other folks who, rather than just, put in their emphasis and their energy into something that would have more importance or something that would benefit them in a more positive aspect, they're over here thinking they got to gear up for war. And so, dude with just randomly going and shooting into houses and shooting into cars, that's some crazy stuff there. So please be careful. That's why I told my mama not to move to Atlanta. But just playing Atlanta, no disrespect. But gosh, that's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. And I think the biggest thing I worry about, because I know everybody hates the president. A lot of people just can't wait for him to get up out of there. The biggest fear I have, which I would not want to speak into existence, is that say he were to get put out, which I don't think is going to happen. I think if Trump is no longer president, it will be because he either loses the election or he resigns. But I don't ever see him being impeached. But let's just say he's out for some reason. I see so many crazy lunatics being so outraged and pissed off that they could possibly go out and do things of a larger catastrophic, caliber to appease their anger and their hatred and whatever else has them pissed off. There's a lot of people who are just crazy right now. So please be careful. That's absolutely ridiculous. They need to find old boy. So I'm gonna have the video playing. Hopefully, if you know him, crazy. Well, if you know him, I don't think you'd be watching this channel. But anyway, moving on. I did want to spend a brief minute talking about just the verdict surrounding the Antwon Rose case. What I've seen so many people say, because there's a lot of people trying to justify why this boy was killed. If you don't remember, this was a 17-year-old kid. He gets shot in the back 3 times by police because they believed he was armed. They believed that the car that he was in was connected with a drive-by shooting in the same area, and they felt that the car fit the description. And they said that okay, there were unregistered guns in the car, and there was gunpowder residue on his hand. And so, long story short, when they pulled him over, he runs, and then he gets shot in the back 3 times, and then he's dead. And so, a lot of people are saying the police were justified in doing what they did. And to that point, here's the aspect that really gets me. If you pay attention to the testimony of the officer said they feared for their life because they felt that they had a weapon. And so when you're talking about, you can talk about whatever was going on with the car. And even with that, I always take that with a grain of salt because the police have been known to change things and plant evidence. You remember we talked about the case where you had the individual who apparently killed himself in a police car over a marijuana charge. They had cuffed him, and they claimed he shot himself in the head in the back of the police car. Mind you, I'm like, since when do you frisk people and don't feel a gun? And secondly, how does somebody get cuffed from behind and somehow they're able to position themselves to somehow aim a gun, cock the gun back, load it, and get the perfect shot to shoot themselves in the head? So I always take some of that with a grain of salt. But even with that, let's say all of that is true. Let's say that, yes, they had unregistered guns. Let's say they had gunpowder. Let's say they were even connected with the drive-by shooting. That's what the court system is for. That's what the day in court is for, even though all of that's corrupt too, but that's what your day in court is for. And so none of that would justify shooting a kid in the back 3 times. Okay, so when you're looking at the action that warranted the gunshots, that would have been the kid running. And with the kid running away, that doesn't serve as a direct threat to that police officer who feared his life. So I didn't buy that at all. I was like, that's some nonsense. And so, again, you're starting to see a trend where you're seeing more and more people get shot in the back. And the officers are being acquitted. And the thing with it is, because some people say, well, he shouldn't have ran. And the thing that I'll say is a 17-year-old kid, let's say all of those things happen that they're alleging that he did. A 17-year-old kid is terrified of what's to come next. Is terrified of recognizing, okay, your life just may be over if these things really happen. Like, I always look back to my own run-in with the police around that same age. I got met with the taser gun to the face. Fortunately, I didn't get shot. Thank God I didn't sneeze. But, I've just always been somebody in times of turmoil and chaos. I'm always usually like this. But, had that have been somebody else, that might have freaked them out. Like, literally, I was looking one way. When I turned around, I was like, oh, whoa, okay, all right. Everybody responds differently. So, again, he should have been able to get his day in court. If that was the argument you want to make. If you wanted to use everything that they said he did as a justification for why he should have been arrested, that could make sense. Probable cause, that could have made sense. The boy was not supposed to be killed because you had probable cause to believe that he may have been up to something. So the officer, again, decided he was going to be judge and executioner, and here we go. And so now you have another officer who's acquitted. And the thing is, as a parent, to watch your child, and let me put it into more context. This is Pittsburgh, the same city where you just had that dude shoot up them 11 people in the synagogue. And what happened with that individual who was still holding the weapon when the police got to him? He was nicely cuffed and taken in, and then of course the news media comes in and they bring up the story of his childhood, and they try to bring up all these different aspects to try to, make sure we can understand his state of mind. But when it's these black kids, it is what they were thugs. They were violent. They deserved to die. The officer was afraid, and the officer rightfully should have been afraid. You know how black people are. They're just all dangerous. He shouldn't have been in the car with the this, that, and the third. He shouldn't have ran. Yeah, this, that. That is the reality of what is. And so you're seeing the double standard. You're seeing the contradictions right in your face. And it's the same cycle that continues to happen each and every time. It's freaking crazy. Really freaking crazy. And so, that's tough. Especially for the parents and for the family. And, we don't know the context of what happened before as far as what was going on in that car. There's just been too many moments where there's been evidence planted, where the stories have been changed, where the stories have been fabricated. So it's hard for me to take their word for it on a lot of things. And even with that, if it were all true, again, that doesn't justify him being shot in the back 3 times. You know what I mean? And it doesn't justify him being killed for running away. I think sometimes a lot of that also ties into just ego and psych. I think a lot of times when an officer makes a command and somebody doesn't do it, to them sometimes I think it just registers as somebody's trying to shake my ego or bruise my ego, and that pride. And sometimes if you kind of have that alpha male energy already, it's just like, it's the first thing they want to do is shoot, especially if you're black. So, dang, it's tough. And I always tell my teenagers I work with, because teenagers, they live in that space of invincibility, and I'm always like, y'all got to be careful. You got to pay attention. You got to really make sure, if you end up in those situations, that you do the smartest thing possible. And even as crazy as it is, even sometimes when these kids are doing everything right, they still get killed. Like I said, it's gonna get to the point where the police shoot you while you're in the casket. You already dead. They're like, I don't know. He had rigor mortis. His arm jumped up. I had to shoot the corpse. I don't know. So yeah, these can always be really tough stories to follow. And I think the saddest part of it is the fact that when you're talking about a lot of black youth, a lot of times they don't get the luxury to amend any mishaps that they may run into, because they get the ultimate consequence all the time. For them, it's either you're good or you're bad. There's no in between. There's no reasoning. There's no let's look at it from all sides. There's none of that. It's throw the book at them. They did something wrong. Lock them up. If they don't get locked up, shoot them up. And so when you're looking at all these other kids, you got kids who go and get drunk and kill 4 people. And the justification is they were born rich and they had affluenza and they didn't know any responsibility. And the judge buys it and they get probation. And then they can't even stay on probation and they skip off to Mexico and the mom pays for it. That's what you're living in. You know what I mean? So there's definitely a double standard. And people can get as mad as they want that I'm constantly always bringing up race. I'm constantly always bringing up slavery. I'm constantly always bringing up redlining. I'm constantly always bringing up sharecropping. I'm constantly always bringing up black codes and literally any and everything that tells the story of the plight of black America, because all of that plays a role. All of that it comes full circle and you're witnessing it. And so I'm always going to be that person who's going to say that. I don't care how many times y'all get tired of hearing it. I'm going to bring it up each and every time because it serves a purpose. It serves a point. And so, yeah, that's a tough story to follow. But I do want to end on a happier note. The irony of sirens, as I'm been talking about that. Anyway, I want to end on a happier note, just so y'all don't go to bed pissed off tonight. I don't know if you've seen this clip, but again, if you follow my podcast and you saw and you listened to the episode that's called Pull Over So I Can Hit You, let's play the clip first and then we'll talk.
At a time. Go one more, right there. Now take your feet off the brake. And then just
put both of your hands on the wheel.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
He thought he was you.
Now turn in this lot right here. Turn. Just turn. Slowly. Slow.
Oh my goodness.
Let me
Okay. Hit the brake.
brake.
Let him out.
So, again, if you follow my podcast, I had an episode where I talked about my experience learning how to drive. And literally, when I saw this clip, I'm not going to lie, I laughed for like a good 20 minutes because this was literally me. If you heard that episode, now that episode, like I said, is called Pull Over So I Can Hit You. The episode, I think it's on this channel, but all of my podcast episodes, I think I'm on 17 episodes. I can't remember, but all of them, they're all on Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher. But in that episode, I talk about the experience of driving and learning how. And like I always say, man, if you're going to teach your kids to drive, The whole family don't need to be in the car, man. That crap is stressful because everybody and their mom was trying to give commentary. I knew the minute I heard that mom say put the hand on the wheel or whatever she said, I was like, oh Lord, this is about to be a disaster. Too much going in one ear and coming from the other sides and everything. Too much for the kid. Just too much. It's stressful. You know, I always tell people when you're teaching someone to drive, because I've taught a bunch of people how to drive, like, you have to be here, because the minute you get antsy or you get anxious or you flip out a little bit, it makes whoever's driving nervous. And one of the things with kids when they're learning to drive is like, okay, I'm driving this car that my parents bought. I'm driving my parents' car. I don't want to tear this thing up. I don't want to disappoint. I'm driving this thing that's a few tons and it could kill 50 people if I just do the wrong thing. I don't want to sneeze and accidentally slam the gas. I don't want, all of that's running through the head of some of these kids. And so I died. When that boy hit them brakes and the mom said turn the camera off, I was like, oh Lord, he about to get cussed out. I thought that crap was hilarious. Man, y'all, when you take your kids out to drive, please don't bring the whole family in. It doesn't have to be a family event, because that's what my family did. Like, man, it was my dad in one seat, my mom in the back. Even my little brother got to go on the ride. Like, too much. I'm not going to tell you everything that happened in the podcast because you'd have to go and listen. But, man, anyway, so that's all for tonight. Also, don't forget, we're going live tomorrow, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. We're talking about the music industry, specifically the subject matter of the streaming era versus the digital era versus the physical era, and why they're not interchangeable, and why we have to get out of the habit of erasing legacies just to kind of celebrate what's current. And again, there's nothing wrong with what's current, but it's pretty much just bringing everything to full circle. So anyway, I'm out. Subscribe, share your 2 cents.